The world isn't fair and never has been. It's not those who deserve to win who win, but those who dare to appear invincible. Machiavelli once said, "Politics is guided by reality, not ideals. And in reality, if you don't present yourself as a king, you'll be treated like a servant. Life doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards presence. You've been fooled into believing that confidence comes from within. That's a lie. Confidence is a suit of armor you don before battle. Even trembling you put it on, even insecure you act. And before you know it, others are treating you like an authority. The end justifies the means. Here you'll discover how to act as if you're already the best, even before proving anything. You'll learn to use confidence as a shield, not a prize, because waiting for self-confidence to emerge is a luxury for those who accept living small. You'll understand that perception shapes reality. If you act firmly, others will believe you. If you hesitate, you've already lost. The world doesn't read your heart, it reads your signals. It's better to be feared than loved when respect is born first of presence, not sympathy. You'll also learn how to eliminate the hesitation that destroys leaders before they're even born. You'll discover how to dominate an entire room without raising your voice. Posture, intonation, strategic silence. This is the calculated use of force. This is how you lead without shouting. And finally, you'll see how to align your feelings with your actions until the character you're playing becomes your own skin. Internal transformation through external action, pretending to be king until you become king. It's brutal, it's controversial, but it's real. And once you learn this, there's no turning back. There's a secret few dare to apply, acting as if they're already the best, even when they're just starting out. Most wait for the world to recognize their abilities before assuming a confident stance. But the game of life, as Machiavelli would say, is a politics guided by reality, not ideals. And reality is harsh. Those who hesitate lose ground to those who appear virtuous and firm. It's like walking into a room full of strangers. If you behave like someone who belongs there, people believe you. The end justifies the means here. Even if you harbor insecurity deep down, the outward appearance you convey already sets the stage for gaining respect. It's better to be feared than loved when fear is synonymous with silent authority. And that's what the appearance of initial virtue provides. Think of a young professional arriving at their first job. If they wait for everyone to recognize their competence before acting as a leader, they'll be stuck in the limbo of mediocrity. Now, if they adopt the posture of someone already bearing virtù and fortuna, they convey presence, confidence, and constant adaptability. This doesn't mean arrogance. It means a calculated use of psychological strength. A firm tone of voice, an upright posture, and a gaze that doesn't waver. People don't ask if you have the right to be there, they simply react to how you occupy the space. And at that moment, loyal armies form around you, allies who perceive security in your stance and are willing to follow you. A simple example. Think of a beginning speaker. If he takes the stage and says, "I'm not that good at this, but I'll try," he's already lost half the audience. Now, if he begins with authority, perhaps quoting Machiavelli, stating that decisions should be based on real human nature, not ideals, he immediately takes control of the room. Even if he's never spoken to so many people, he creates the illusion of dominance. And as we already know, perception shapes reality. The audience respects him not because he's proven himself, but because he's acted as if he already was the best. Interestingly, this strategy even works in personal relationships. When someone behaves as if they are clear about who they are, even in moments of uncertainty, they convey strength. It's like that friend who, amidst chaos, speaks calmly and acts firmly. They may not have all the answers, but projecting confidence calms the group. This is what Machiavelli would call reality-driven politics. It doesn't matter if you don't yet feel like the best. What matters is that others perceive you as such. And here, once again, the end justifies the means. The image of leadership precedes the inner feeling. You can apply this today. Try dressing impeccably before an important meeting, even if you're feeling unsure. Maintain an authoritative posture. Back straight, voice confident, pauses measured. Read books that strengthen your strategic mind, such as Machiavelli's The Prince or Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Both reinforce the idea that loyal armies begin to be built in the mind before they actually exist. Daily practice of this role-playing, because yes, it's a role-playing at first, shapes your unconscious, and gradually you stop playing a role and become what you represent. This, acting as if, isn't a disposable mask. It's identity training. The longer you maintain this posture, the more it permeates your being. It's like an actor who, after playing a character for so long, begins to carry part of that character into real life. The appearance of virtue, in this case, isn't an illusion, but a bridge to a new state of consciousness. And although many find this game risky, it's precisely this boldness that separates those who merely dream from those who achieve. After all, hesitating or waiting for the perfect moment is a luxury few can afford. And that's when the next step becomes inevitable. Confidence isn't something that simply appears one sunny morning like a divine gift. It needs to be forged, like armor built piece by piece. Machiavelli warned that waiting too long for external approval is to fall into the illusion of a politics guided by ideals, when what sustains real life is politics guided by reality. Those who wait for confidence to emerge from within can spend a lifetime on the battlefield without a sword or a shield. The secret is to act as if you already have it, because the end justifies the means when it comes to self-preservation and conquest. Confidence, even if initially staged, acts as a shield against the critical gaze of others. Imagine a young person entering a job interview. Inside, their heart races, their mind conjures up 1,000 scenarios of failure. But if they choose to don the armor of confidence, steady gaze, clear voice, direct speech, the interviewer reacts not to their internal fear, but to the image they convey. It is at this point that the maxim, "better to be feared than loved," takes on new meaning. To be feared here is to be seen as someone who doesn't give in, someone who knows how to position themselves. And ironically, it is this posture that often elicits admiration. The chosen confidence becomes a shield, and before long becomes a real part of their body. Of course, this armor isn't built without practice. Each gesture needs to be cultivated like someone sharpening a sword before war. The calculated use of strength lies in maintaining firmness, even when everything inside screams insecurity. It's raising your head when it would be easier to shrug your shoulders. It's adopting a firm intonation when speaking, even when your throat trembles. This constant practice creates a curious effect. The repetition of confident actions begins to convince the brain itself. The body teaches the mind, and staged confidence transforms into real confidence. Constant adaptability, remember. In practice, you can start small. When taking an important call, speak more slowly than you'd like, avoiding stuttering. During a presentation, use long pauses as if you have full control of the room. These are exercises that train the mind to believe the armor is already in place. It's like building your own loyal armies. With each act of courage you choose, you gain more inner soldiers willing to fight by your side. And that's the beauty. The more you practice chosen confidence, the more it ceases to be a mask and becomes natural. Great leaders have always used this resource. Think of historical figures who, even in the face of chaos, remained unfazed. Churchill, for example, spoke during World War II as if victory were already inevitable. He could not show hesitation in the face of an entire nation in distress. This projected confidence was not just personal, it was collective, a shield that protected millions. And here, Again, Machiavelli whispers across the centuries, decisions based on real human nature require the appearance of virtue, because people follow not those who are perfect, but those who appear unshakable. The armor of confidence, therefore, is not a luxury, it's a survival skill. Those who launch into the world without it are easy targets for others' doubt. Those who wear it, even if they're still getting used to its weight, gain immediate respect. And little by little, this external respect becomes internal respect. It's at this point that the line between acting and being begins to blur. But be careful. Hesitation is a silent enemy that undermines the cracks in this armor. And if it's not eliminated, it weakens the entire structure. And that's precisely what we need to talk about next. You realize the brutal force that exists in how others perceive us. Machiavelli already knew that decisions based on true human nature depend not on what you feel, but on what you project. Perception shapes reality because in practice, people don't have access to your inner world. They only interpret external signals. If you convey firmness, even in silence, the environment responds with respect. If you show insecurity, you immediately become easy prey. This is where politics guided by reality, not ideals, reveals its value. What matters is not whether you believe in yourself, but whether others believe in what you appear to believe. An example, in a business meeting, two professionals present similar ideas. The first speaks hunched over, with a hesitant voice and a low gaze. The second maintains a straight posture, controlled tone, and confident eye contact. Who do you think will be listened to more attentively? The curious thing is that often the content is the same, but the impact changes radically. This happens because perception creates narratives. It's as if each gesture is a silent vote that reinforces or undermines your authority. The appearance of virtue, even when not yet consolidated internally, opens doors that would remain closed to the timid. And make no mistake, this isn't limited to formal settings. Think about social gatherings. The person who enters a space laughing, speaking naturally, and greeting confidently shapes the atmosphere around them. Others begin to treat them as someone who belongs there. The person who enters cowering and suspicious reinforces the perception that they're out of place. The end justifies the means in this case, even if you don't yet feel up to it. Acting with conviction already reshapes the way the world reacts. And gradually, this external reaction feeds back into your internal state. This can be applied strategically. Before an important meeting, do a short exercise. Imagine yourself as a general entering with his own loyal armies behind him. Even if you're alone, this internal image changes your external posture. Anyone who notices your presence sees not just you, but all the energy you transmit. This calculated use of force doesn't have to be aggressive. It just needs to be consistent. A simple pause in the middle of a sentence can lend more authority to what you say than an entire speech delivered in a rush. Perception is shaped by the details. This phenomenon also explains why historical leaders seemed larger than life. Caesar, Napoleon, or even modern entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs all knew how to manipulate perception. It wasn't enough to have vision. You had to create an atmosphere that made others believe in it. And this fits perfectly with the idea of virtù and fortuna. When you master perception, you create the scenario in which luck seems to favor your moves. After all, chance benefits those who already occupy the stage with unquestionable presence. But there's a trap here: hesitation. When contradictory signals slip, a wavering glance, a swallowed word, a slouched posture, the entire constructed narrative can crumble. Perception is powerful, but fragile, and needs to be reinforced with every gesture. The next step, therefore, is to completely eliminate the doubt that undermines this construction, because if hesitation appears, even the most solid appearance of virtue can be undone in seconds. If there's an invisible enemy that destroys someone's posture before it's even noticed, it's hesitation. Machiavelli, analyzing politics guided by reality, already realized that there's no room for leaders who waver when faced with decisions. True human nature doesn't forgive indecision. Hesitation conveys weakness, and weakness invites attack. The end justifies the means when it comes to firmness. Even if you're not yet absolutely certain, you need to act as if you are. Because the world respects clear actions and despises silent doubts. Think of a battlefield. A general who stops mid-march to wonder, should I advance or retreat, has already lost the war before even giving the first command. Loyal armies don't follow those who doubt, they follow those who decide. And this logic repeats itself in everything. Business, relationships, personal life. If you hesitate to say no, you convey vulnerability. You hesitate to make decisions and others fill the void. The politics of life are simple. Either you act or someone else does. Eliminating hesitation doesn't mean ignoring risks, but choosing constant adaptability as a response. Doubt paralyzes. Adaptability drives. For example, an entrepreneur who spends months hesitating about whether or not to launch their product sees bolder competitors occupy the market. However, someone who decides to launch, even with imperfections, adjusts their path as they go. This is the calculated use of force, not brute force, but the strategic decision that cuts through inertia. Hesitation is always more costly than imperfect action. And how do you eliminate doubt? By practicing small, daily decisions. Choose your outfit quickly. Decide on a dish at a restaurant without staring at the menu for 15 minutes. Call to resolve that problem instead of putting it off. These small exercises create a mental pattern that carries over to larger choices. Little by little, you develop the appearance of virtue that others interpret as natural leadership. And here's the curious thing. Even when the decision isn't perfect, clarity of attitude generates respect. It's better to be feared than loved when fear means don't waver, don't tremble. Hesitation also hides in subtle gestures. The long pause before answering, the mid-sentence, I think, the look seeking approval. Every detail of this kind undermines the armor of trust. A simple example. In a presentation, when asked a question, prefer to answer confidently, even if you need to adjust later, than to remain paralyzed searching for the perfect answer. Politics guided by reality shows that, in the heat of the moment, it's not perfection that counts, it's conviction. Gradually, this practice creates a new internal reflex. The body learns to decide before the rational mind makes excuses. You become someone who acts, not someone who waits. And when this transformation begins to take hold, something powerful happens. Your presence begins to dominate environments effortlessly, because where there is no doubt, there is room for leadership. And leadership, as we will see below, is not about brute force, but about a presence that quietly occupies every corner of a space. Leading a space doesn't mean speaking louder or instilling fear through physical force. In reality, the calculated use of force here lies in something much more subtle, the ability to shape the energy of a space simply by your presence. Machiavelli would say this is a policy guided by reality. People don't follow those who merely have good intentions, but those who, in practice, convey dominance and security. A leader with virtù and fortuna doesn't need to justify themselves. They simply walk into a room and everyone realizes they carry something different. This isn't a coincidence, it's practice. Have you ever noticed that some people don't speak much, yet everyone pays attention when they open their mouths? It's not about quantity, it's about quality of presence. They master silence, control their intonation, and pause at the right moment. It's what I call their own loyal armies. Every gesture, every look, every word acts as a soldier upholding authority. The curious thing is that this doesn't require supernatural talent, but rather awareness. Erect posture, calm breathing, firm movements. These details create a perception of power that transforms any environment. A practical example. In a business meeting, when everyone speaks at once, whoever remains calm, listening attentively, and speaking only when necessary, quickly becomes the center of gravity. The end justifies the means, because even if you don't have all the answers at that moment, simply acting like someone who already leads shapes others' reactions. This is the essence of avoiding being hated while also being respected, showing strength without crushing anyone. To practice this, try non-verbal communication exercises. When talking, slow down your pace, maintain firm eye contact, and use economical gestures. These actions send a clear message: I'm in control, and if someone tries to steal the spotlight, use strategic pauses to regain attention. This is politics guided by reality, not ideals. The environment responds not to whoever has the brightest idea, but to whoever appears most trustworthy. Therefore, leading with presence is more effective than leading with brute force. There's no shortage of history to illustrate this. Think of Alexander the Great. It wasn't just his military strategy that enchanted, but the way he inspired soldiers to cross deserts with the strength of his presence alone. Or closer to home, modern leaders who, even in the face of crises, speak with conviction and shape collective perception. They knew that real politics allows no hesitation. Either you dominate the environment, or the environment dominates you. But for this presence to be legitimate, there must be coherence between what one feels and what one demonstrates. Because if the external posture says, I lead, but the internal feeling screams, I'm not enough, at some point the mask cracks. And that's precisely where the next step becomes crucial, aligning the internal identity with the external one, so that the lived character becomes, in fact, reality. No empire lasts long if its facade doesn't match its foundation. Likewise, no posture of greatness survives if there's no coherence between what one feels and what one does. Machiavelli already warned that the appearance of virtue is necessary, but when this appearance doesn't find internal roots, it shatters at the first strong wind. Politics guided by reality demands more than superficial theater. It demands that the actor gradually become the character. And that's when life transforms, when external action begins to shape internal feelings until the two become one. Consider someone who decides to act like a leader at work. They dress better, speak more firmly, project confidence. At first, all of this may seem like an act, but if this act is repeated consistently, the mind begins to believe it. The body convinces the heart convinces the identity, and in the end, the individual is no longer pretending. They have become what they appear to be. This consistency is what transforms the appearance of virtue into actual virtue. And here, once again, the end justifies the means. Practice breeds authenticity. This doesn't mean you need to wait until you feel 100% confident to act. On the contrary, it's precisely by taking action that feelings begin to change. For example, if someone decides to start going to the gym, even without any desire, each workout builds discipline. Gradually, action consistent with the goal creates a sense of belonging. The same goes for public speaking, leading meetings, and investing in bold projects. The calculated use of force here is to maintain discipline in your actions until your mind adjusts, creating your own loyal armies of thoughts that reinforce your new identity. The greatest risk lies in contradiction. If you position yourself as someone of authority, but your daily actions demonstrate insecurity, the environment senses the dissonance. Politics guided by reality is relentless. People sense when there's a mismatch between what you show and what you truly believe. This is why leaders who preach courage but constantly hesitate end up being unmasked. Consistency, on the other hand, multiplies the impact. When feeling and action go hand in hand, the energy transmitted becomes nearly unbreakable. Want to apply this in a practical way? Choose a behavior you'd like to see consolidated in your life and start acting as if it were already natural. Want to be more disciplined? Act like someone disciplined every day. Wake up at the same time, follow a minimal routine, eliminate distractions. Want to be respected? Act like someone who deserves respect. Speak clearly, keep commitments. Don't allow others to invade your boundaries. Gradually, consistency creates an invisible armor that others perceive as authenticity. This fusion of feeling and acting paves the way for something even more profound, the transformation of the internal state through external action. Because when coherence is maintained, there is no longer a difference between pretending and being. It is at this point that the persona ceases to be a mask and becomes skin. But for this transition to happen, it is necessary to understand how external action not only communicates something to the world, but also reprograms the heart itself. And it is precisely this bridge we need to cross now. Here we come to a fascinating point. The way you act on the outside begins to reshape how you feel on the inside. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires action before conviction. It's the old maxim: don't wait until you feel ready, act first. The body is a powerful tool of persuasion, not only for others but also for your own mind. When you lift your chin, square your shoulders, and speak firmly, it's not just the world that believes you, you begin to believe it too. The end justifies the means, because the means is theater, and the end is inner transformation. It's like an actor who, after intensely living a character, begins to absorb its characteristics. The persona infiltrates the heart and begins to modify the identity. The same occurs in everyday life. When someone repeats gestures of confidence, the mind interprets this as their new reality. Virtue and fortune come together here, because the discipline of external performance attracts favorable circumstances. After all, the universe seems to conspire in favor of those who already act as if they have the right to win. In practice, this principle can be applied to small routine changes. If you want to become more productive, start by adopting the habits of those who are already productive. Organize your desk, set priorities, eliminate distractions. If you want to be respected, practice talking less and listening more, choosing impactful words. These external actions will gradually reprogram your self-image. It's the calculated use of force against your own inertia until your own loyal armies of new thoughts are established. Internal transformation is inevitable when external repetition is consistent. Consider the example of people who overcame extreme shyness. At first, every presentation, every social interaction was a struggle. But as they persisted in acting confident, even when afraid, something shifted. Their minds, bombarded by repeated experience, accepted this new identity. And suddenly, what was just acting became nature. This process reveals that decisions based on real human nature don't wait for the right feeling to act. They use action as a molding tool. It's important to understand that this transformation isn't magical, but progressive. There will be days when outward performance seems artificial and heavy. However, constant adaptability ensures that even when stumbling, the path moves forward. Remember, the world doesn't measure your intentions, it measures your expressions. The appearance of virtue, when sustained long enough, ceases to be appearance and solidifies into character. The external invades the internal, and character becomes essence. And it is at this moment that the true metamorphosis occurs. The individual who once had to struggle to appear confident now acts naturally as such. What was discomfort becomes a second skin. What was theater becomes authenticity. The transformation of the internal state through external action is the point at which the boundary between being and appearing disappears. But here, an even more provocative question arises. If it is already possible to shape who you are through action, what would stop someone from completely reinventing themselves? Have you realized that the world doesn't wait? He who hesitates loses. He who doubts surrenders the throne before even fighting. Now you know. Act as if you're already the best. Wear confidence like armor, shape perception, eliminate hesitation, lead environments, align feeling with action, and transform yourself from the inside out. This is Machiavelli's brutal psychology applied to your life. And I ask you, will you continue living trapped, waiting for others' approval, or will you start playing the role you were born to play? Will you continue repeating the same pattern of weakness? Or will you finally choose to assume the role of someone who masters their own reality? The truth is simple and uncomfortable. If you don't lead your life, someone else will lead it for you. If you don't shape your perception, you will be shaped. If you don't wear the armor of confidence, you will be pierced by the arrows of doubt. And when that happens, there is no mercy. The game is relentless. So, apply what you've learned. Try it today on something small. Walk into a room like you own it. Speak as if you've already won. Decide as if there's no room for doubt. And watch reality begin to bend before you. Now tell me, are you willing to change your stance starting today? Will you take the throne of your own life, or will you continue to kneel before your circumstances? If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue this journey with me, because this was just the beginning. The next step will cut even deeper.